In the world, all things have their spirit, and those who are able to summon them will be called the summoners. Summoners of the earth, of the dead, of souls, and even of the stars. However, these are legends that come from ancient times, and like all legends, they will be lost in time and forgotten, until some young summoner appears to bring it back to life. 16-year-old Ajia, single and carefree, hangs out in a tree away from the city with his injured kitten, Meowwu. The boy doesn't seem to be particularly interested in anything. He has no dreams, he couldn't care less about his grades, and relationships are also off his radar. He's just a grumpy kid who eats, sleeps, and goes to high school. But what he's really good at, he reveals, is taking care of himself, especially in the kitchen, where he shows great skills and creates exquisite flavors. Even his father called him the king of noodles, and his mother swore that not even a god could resist a good meal. When our main character finishes making the perfect ramen, an energy sphere appears in the kitchen, opening a portal through which a woman with pink hair, resembling a goddess, emerges. Taken aback by this unexpected appearance, Ajia drops the plate of food, and the beautiful woman instantly turns into a little girl who proceeds to devour the boy's freshly prepared meal. Ajia promptly kicks her out of his house, thinking he's hallucinating. However, as soon as he re-enters his house, he finds Dora again, who continues to munch on his lunch. Seeing this, Ajia tries to get rid of the little spirit, but he ends up giving up when he realizes it's impossible. He decides to talk to her and asks why she's there. Dora explains that she's a summoned spirit from an ancient era, and she's 3 million years old. Her beautiful woman form is her original form, but she becomes small because she needs a lot of energy to maintain that body. She then explains that since time immemorial, people have used food to summon spirits, so, accidentally, Ajia summoned her with his food, and now he must take responsibility. After hearing the explanation, the boy doesn't seem too surprised. In fact, he seems annoyed by what just happened, and, without thinking much about it, he heads off to high school. However, on the way, he encounters Dora, who won't stop following him. In an attempt to dissuade our protagonist from signing a contract, Dora swears she can grant wishes, but Ajia couldn't care less about that either. After an uncomfortable moment in class, Ajia realizes that the only person who can see Dora is him. For everyone else, she's invisible. On his way back from school, a girl approaches our protagonist to deliver a love letter, but due to Dora's insistence and annoyance, Ajia ends up yelling at the little spirit, terrifying the girl. Later, in a tree away from the city, Ajia presents Dora with an exorbitant amount of food, thinking that if he summoned her with food, he can make her leave with more food. Dora becomes sad at this proposal, as a spirit that fails to sign a contract and suffers abandonment from its master is destined to wander eternally as a ghost for centuries until it fades away. Before disappearing, Dora takes her original form and tells him that she will cherish the moments and experiences she had in that city. Then, she takes our protagonist's hand so that he can see the city through her eyes, creating a more romanticized view of every little situation, showing him the spirit of all things. She explains that few people have the power to summon, but those who do can achieve unimaginable things. After explaining this, through Ajia's hands, she demonstrates to the boy the great power he has as a summoner, and immediately after, she asks our protagonist if he would like to be a summoner and explore the world with her. Excited, Ajia takes the girl's hand, and at that moment, a sphere of light forms that binds them together, as they have just closed the contract. From now on, Ajia won't be able to get rid of Dora. Later, at Ajia's house, they both tend to their wounds, as Dora has harmed them on a dangerous journey in the sky. At that moment, the power goes out in his house, and Ajia seems unconcerned because he's already used to it. But Dora reminds him that he's now a summoner, and she takes his hand to summon the light of fireflies, which not only illuminates but also has a healing effect, surprising Ajia. When Ajia asks Dora where she really came from, alternate images flash through the spirit's mind about an ancient war between giants, spirits, and soldiers, ending with an image of her chained in space. After such a traumatic memory, Dora falls asleep. From outside, our protagonists are being observed by another spirit. While our protagonists are in high school, they see on the news the consequences of yesterday's events, images of Ajia flying and the trees destroyed. So they decide to keep a low profile from now on. However, this takes a back seat when a carnivorous plant appears next to Dora, swallows her in an instant, and quickly disappears. Seeing this, Agia starts chasing after it to save her because Dora explains that spirits cannot use their powers if they are far from their masters, and if they stray too far, they can lose their telepathic connection. While chasing the carnivorous plant, it sneaks into a fair. There he meets the girl who declared her love to him in the previous chapter. It is then revealed that she is very powerful and skilled in martial arts, and she gives Agia a second chance, but the boy seems not to pay attention as he continues to search for Dora. When he manages to locate the whereabouts of the carnivorous plant, he gets close enough for Dora to use her powers and free herself from it. However, when he starts chasing it, the plant runs off to be with its owner. Dora, completely enraged by the situation, starts chasing after the plant and its owner, but when she's about to harm them, they both disappear as if by magic. Agia later explains that he perfectly deduced who would be the owner of the plant, which surprises Dora. He reveals that by seeing who the summoner was, he noticed some things. She's a wealthy girl, the daughter of an aristocratic family that runs the institution, so they can't confront her directly. He also noticed that, although the summoner wasn't very close to her spirit, it still had great power compared to Dora. Elsewhere, an adult man scolds the girl for failing in her mission, as he expects to see Agia's potential. The next day, this beautiful girl approaches Agia at school and hands him a letter inviting him to the forest. Once there, the spirit of the carnivorous plant tells Agia to hand over Dora, but he refuses. Then they begin to attack him fiercely, demonstrating great power, which our protagonist barely withstands, while Dora does nothing to help him. When all seems to be coming to an end, our two protagonists manage to agree and fight against their opponents using ancestral knives. And, to everyone's surprise, they end up defeating them. After the previous battle, Dora attacks the girl from behind to finish her off, but Agia steps in her way to prevent it. When the spirit fails to understand why, our protagonist explains that he doesn't want to be a killer, and he has also noticed that the girl has been holding back all this time. After making amends, the two boys with their respective spirits gather to have dinner with the homemade food prepared by Agia. There, the plant explains that there are different types of summoners, some are bad, and others are good, so it's not uncommon to run into another summoner accidentally and end up in a fight. Likewise, there are good and bad spirits. Fortunately, the plant and the girl are good spirits and guardians of the city, and they have only tested our protagonists, claiming that they have passed. However, later on, the girl, who reveals her name to be Hannah, confesses to Agia that she knows him well, but not his spirit, so she will be watching them, and then she hands him a black rose, which means that he is now under her power. Meanwhile, a girl with a cat-like appearance who is friends with Meow has memories of losing her brother in the war. This same girl appears in the city and starts sending zoo animals to attack all the citizens and make them succumb to her power. When she faces all the animals, Agia rushes to save the girl because he believes she is in danger, but she scolds him and Meow scratches him. At that moment, Hannah and the plant appear to control this new enemy who has appeared. Then, she angrily explains that she and the animals have always been there, but then they came and took over the land. Immediately after, Hannah and the cat girl engage in a fierce battle where both manage to demonstrate their great skills and harm each other, almost to the point of eliminating each other. Seeing that both girls are in danger, Agia decides to intervene, and using Dora's powers, they manage to chain both of them, ending the battle right there. Then, he discovers that the summoner is not the girl, but her cat Meow, with the girl being the spirit. After discovering this, our protagonist begins to heal the cat's wounds, just like the first time they met. Although Dora and her master want to end the problems, the plant asserts that the battle will not truly end until they hand over the spirit. Agia and Dora agree to defend Meow and the girl, saying they won't hand them over until they're healed. Then, Hannah and the plant let them go, but not without warning them that they've chosen the wrong ally and have become enemies of the wrong person. Later, Meow and her spirit are at our protagonist's house. There, the girl tells them that there are many summoner animals. She also proceeds to explain the reason she's there, which is ultimately to find her brother, whom she lost in the war, and that, in fact, the number mounted with the animals was just a scene to get her brother's attention, but it seems to have failed. At that moment, we learn that the girl's brother is watching her from the sky and doesn't seem very happy to have found her. The next day, a group of thug bodyguards show up at Agia's house to take him to Hannah's mansion. Once there, they can observe the wonderfulness of her mansion and the strange things they keep there. In the mansion, Ajia hears the voice of a statue that leads him to a vision in which a woman calls him in the middle of nature. However, nothing else is revealed, although it seems that the statue is the first leader of the Watchers. They continue their way in the mansion until they reach the room where the adult man who had previously spoken with Hannah is. The man introduces himself as Harlan, the leader of the Black Rose family and Hannah's grandfather. While he appears to be a normal gentleman, Harlan manages to sit our protagonist down with his powers, surprising Ajia. He then goes on to explain that all things have a spirit and that it seems that the source of those spirits is a simple crystal, a god, a devil, for which men have fought countless wars to seize it, wars that have lasted for centuries. Since ancient times, summoners have been divided into two sides. One transmits the power of nature, letting nature take its course and protecting the balance of the world. These summoners are called the Watchers. The other side, on the other hand, gathers power wherever they find it and eliminate and invade everything in their path because they want to take all the power to control the world. They call these the Destroyers. Every summoner must choose a side at some point. However, when Ajia says that his parents told him not to get involved with the mafia, Harlan reveals that he knows everything about the boy. His parents abandoned him at the age of 5, and he lived with his foster parents until he could support himself. He is a model student, has 2 jobs, and dyed his hair to hide his natural blonde. He also reveals to Miaowu that he knows she's looking for her brother, but that her brother is currently one of the worst destroyers and one of the most wanted. After making all these revelations, he invites our protagonist to stay at the mansion for a few days. While they're having dinner, one of the destroyers interrupts the meal, entering the room after destroying the roof. Then, a fierce battle ensues, in which Harlan demonstrates his great powers, and they manage to destroy the mansion. After the battle, the man tells our protagonist to flee, and he entrusts Hannah with taking care of Ajia. As they're escaping, a destroyer appears, whom Hannah seems to know. Then the 2 girls start battling. At that moment, Miaowu manages to see her brother and goes after him, but the man attacks her, destroying her face. After seeing the damage inflicted on Miaowu, Ajia rushes to defend her, but then Miaowu's brother touches him, and memories that aren't his flood in. In a forest, a blonde woman embraces him, and we learn that she's his mother. However, when a young Ajia returns the hug, the atmosphere turns dark, and his mother takes on a cadaverous appearance that frightens him. Harlan and Hannah continue to fight. The grandfather seems to be winning, but they quickly defeat the girl, causing her deep wounds. Then, Harlan uses his healing powers to save her life, but while he's occupied with that, the 4 destroyers ally themselves and attack simultaneously, shooting directly at his head. When it seems that Harlan has lost his life, he manages to transform into a kind of gigantic entity, a huge spirit that begins to harm the destroyers. However, 4 against 1 is 4 against 1, and the destroyers manage to overcome him, removing Harlan's spirit, which was the target of the attack. Before leaving, they decide to leave the rest alive, as they don't seem to be a hindrance. At Ajia's house, Hannah is being healed by the plant Luan, but she remains unconscious. The cat girl, Miaowu, seems to have survived and is fine. Ajia continues to search for information and finds a website that seems to belong to a summoner called the Attractive Summoner, so they decide to visit her at a book signing event. Meanwhile, the Attractive Summoner, our protagonists, are looking for seems to make blatant use of her powers, adapting everything to her liking. Ajia attends the book signing event in disguise, and after buying all her books, the Attractive Summoner reveals that she knows our protagonists because she's been watching them for a while. She also tells them that her ability is to control everything she wants with her cell phone, showing that in this digital age, a lot of information can be obtained this way, and revealing that the destroyers who attacked them the previous night were actually 7. While the Attractive Summoner demonstrates her powers, an explosion erupts beside her, and they are pursued by 4 individuals whom they don't know. Then, they all start to escape together, while being attacked by their enemies, and manage to flee in a car driven by the powers of the Attractive Summoner, who we'll learn is a young man named Sitten. While being pursued, Sitten manages to uncover with his cell phone that the 4 pursuers are black mechanical spirits, similar to robots, chasing him because he hacked their systems a while back. However, with his powers, Sitten disables their Wi-Fi so they can't call for reinforcements, and being low-level spirits, they can be easily defeated as they don't know how to fight. Despite this, the spirits keep attacking constantly with their weapons, so Dora and Miaowu begin their defensive plan. However, The robots are stronger than they seem and don't give up easily. Ajia manages to control their attacks with a powerful shield, but the robots destroy the road, causing our protagonists to fall from a great height. They are only saved because Dora manages to lessen the impact of the fall with her powers. When the robots reach our protagonist's location, Sidon uses his powers to create a giant robot that triples the size of his adversaries and easily defeats them. Unfortunately, his enemies manage to damage Sidon's robot, causing a huge explosion. Upon falling after the explosion, Sidon loses his wig, revealing that the boy had spoken to Ajia earlier at the fair to convince him to join him, but Ajia had ignored him because he was looking for Dora. Despite this, our protagonist encourages him to join their group to be their eyes, and Sidon accepts. Back at Sidon's hideout, Ajia mentions that his goal is to gather as much information as possible about the destroyers. Then Sidon shows them a current map compared to one from a month ago, revealing that the destroyers have been gathering power. Going further back in the timeline, Sidon comments that there wasn't as much activity among the spirits before, but on March 17th, the amount of activity began to increase, as if all dormant spirits had awakened on that same day. Doing the math, they realize that March 17th was the day Ajia summoned Dora, so they try to find out more about the spirit's past, but she doesn't really remember it well. Then, they return to the site of the battle at Hannah's castle. There they find a camera, from which they extract its videos. They can then watch and analyze all the destroyers who attacked that night. Sidon begins to hypothesize that during the fight, what Ajia thought was a dream was actually a technique used by the destroyers to assault his mind. He also reveals that the one who delivered the finishing blow to Harlan was the leader of the destroyers, a reaper who not only absorbed spirits but also human souls. After Sidon's narration, we learn about the 7 destroyers: Flame, Raven, Ruthless, Heart, Dream, Shadow, and Space. Continuing with the summoning, they manage to observe hundreds of evil spirits that were sealed by Hannah's family for centuries. Towards the end, they decide to go in search of one of the destroyers, who is located near the city. While enjoying the delicious meal prepared by Ajia, the boy shares his past with his companions. Until the age of 5, he lived with his parents, but they moved constantly, so he never managed to make friends. One day, his father disappeared without reason. Months later, his mother did too. After this, relatives took care of him, leading a normal life until he was old enough to live on his own. On the other hand, Dora mentions that being 3 million years old, she doesn't remember much of her past, but she does recall being alone at the beginning, meeting many people and visiting many places, but always on the move. All her memories appear fragmented, and every time she tries to remember, she gets a headache. Sidon then demonstrates that her memories and her heart are sealed, which is why the girl can't remember anything. The next day, they venture into a rocky area, difficult to enter. After passing through an abandoned village, they come across a flower forest, which our protagonists assume is the lair of the destroyers. However, at that moment, a common man emerges from a small cabin and starts working the land. After Dora makes a scene, Ajia has no choice but to introduce himself, as he notices the farmer waving at him from a distance. He tells him that he is a student who is out for a walk, and the farmer is glad because no one has visited him in many years. He then offers him a cup of tea, which Ajia discreetly disposes of when his host isn't looking. As they converse, the man tells him that he planted the flower field. Before, that land was barren, but there was a little girl who wanted to make a flower field there, and she tried for years, but she never could. After her death, the farmer wanted to continue the girl's work and took 10 years to finish the field. At that moment, a fierce storm breaks out, destroying his flowers, which makes the man angry Hulk-style and, against his will, he turns into the stone destroyer that attacked Hannah's mansion. After several unsuccessful attempts to attack, Ajia and Dora plan a joint attack, but they need Meowwu to distract him. However, the girl is easily defeated, and Sidon starts to distract him by searching for alternatives since his cell phone powers don't work in that place. He then reveals that the man's name is Madwa and he has a severe brain trauma that causes him multiple personality disorder. His destructor personality has killed several people, and he is a highly wanted criminal. In the midst of the fight, the flowers blow away in the wind, and our protagonists manage to see hundreds of human bones underneath them. When Dora and Ajia's combined power works, the girl transfers her power and memories of certain techniques to the young man. With this in mind, Ajia gains a great ability with which he attacks his enemy, causing him significant damage. The battle rages on between Ajia and Madwa, but our hero easily defeats him. When he loses his stone appearance and is weakened, Madwa tells them that they still can't kill him, and despite Dora's insistence on doing so, he warns them that it will be worse. With terror in his eyes, the man tells them that he has been cursed since birth, as evil spirits, parasitic spirits, possessed him, gradually taking over the body and brain of the person until they fully possess them. Because of this, his mother died in childbirth. Later, his father had an emotional breakdown and committed suicide. He had a tough childhood, as the villagers considered him a monster, so they beat him and left him chained in the mountains. To avoid starving, he began eating dirt, but then a little girl approached to feed him. Over time, they became great friends. After years and after the Black Plague, the village blamed Madwa for ruining the land, so they decided to beat him. In the beating, they ended up taking the life of the girl who stood up to defend him. Seeing his beloved suffer, Madwa turned into the stone monster, as the parasite and the rage nested in him and turned him into what he is now. In that state, he destroyed the village and the villagers. After that, he was able to plant the flower field. After telling this story, he tells our protagonists that they cannot end him because, to his suffering, being alive is the only thing that keeps the parasite controllable as it resides within his body. As he says this, the parasite begins to emerge from his body. In a tower among the clouds, the destroyers gather because they sense that Madwa is in danger. In a flashback, we see how the destroyers took possession of Madwa at his worst moment, sealing the parasite in his chest so he could have a somewhat normal life. In the present, the parasite breaks the seal, ending Madwa's life and turning into a giant stone monster. In the fight, our protagonists are vastly overwhelmed by the beast. When Ajia is unconscious after a blow, he finds himself in the sealed crystal heart of Dora, where he manages to touch the crystal after breaking some chains. At that moment, Dora becomes a celestial goddess, and using an incredible and overwhelming power we hadn't seen before, she manages to defeat the parasite. Our protagonists, damaged but alive, retreat from the scene, knowing that from now on they will be pursued by the destroyers. Our main crew is chilling in Sitten's hideout, patching up their gnarly wounds, when the destroyers roll in and wipe them out like it's nothing. After slicing and dicing Ajia into pieces, he wakes up in a time-space crack, where a hooded figure explains that he and his buddies got wiped out in a different timeline, and now their spirits belong to the destroyers. When he's feeling all down about not being strong enough, the hooded guy tells Ajia he can give him 3 minutes to undo what happened. When he takes off the hood, Ajia realizes it's none other than his dad, and he tells him that when all this is over, he'll be waiting for him at the Forge of the Devil. Then he wakes up back in Sitten's hideout right before the attack. In a rush, Ajia spills his plan to his crew, so they quickly switch to another ride, setting up a trap in the hideout and managing to escape unscathed. The gang then decides to keep on fleeing cause they know the destroyers are hot on their tail. They head to Ajia's place to look for Hannah, but she's not there, just a note telling them to meet at the Devil's Forge. Turns out, this place is like a test to get stronger, a sacred spot for summoners where they go from being rookies to the real deal summoners. So our crew heads to the Devil's Forge. After overcoming some major obstacles, they reach the place. But then Ajia starts feeling like something fishy is going on. Right then, the destroyers pop up and start attacking, but our heroes manage to hold them off for a few minutes. However, the destroyers eventually overpower them, and the chopper our crew is in crashes onto the island. When it seems like it's game over cause the destroyers are right in front of them and showing no mercy, Bonnie, a girl dressed as a bunny, shows up to tell them they've broken 12 island rules in those few minutes, and she'll be in charge of giving them warnings. When one of the destroyers threatens her, Bonnie stands up to her without fear and explains that this is the Forge of the Devil. Bonnie keeps on with her explanations, saying that rule number 1 is that it's forbidden to take out anyone inside the arena. And she emphasizes that no matter who they are, even if it's the leader of a country, when you're in the Devil's Forge, you respect its rules. Then she scolds the other destroyers. When one of them tries to threaten her, their leader says they must respect Bonnie, and then they leave. Seconds later, Bonnie leaves too. As they walk across the island, hot, damaged, and thirsty, Lichard appears before them, a man on a giant chameleon, who leads them to their destination. During the journey, he mentions that in the Devil's Forge there are no good or bad guys, only rules. This is because years ago, the Watchers and the Destroyers fought a massive war that engulfed the entire world and devastated both sides. So, to lessen the damage, they agreed to a ceasefire and created the island of the Devil's Forge away from the world, where peaceful rules are followed. Nobody has ever broken the rules because the place is sacred, and anyone who does must face the Watchers and the Destroyers. Once in the city, Lichard, in a wicked plan, offers them spring water from the island, which heals their wounds but is highly addictive, and our heroes quickly drink it without knowing the latter. Lichard pays for their drinks and new clothes, but he seems to be plotting something dark. When they finally reach the mansion of the Devil's Forge, they find that there are many people besides them from all over the planet. When our heroes try to register, they find that the entry fee is 2 million, a very high price they can't afford. However, Sitten manages to hack the account of a drug lord and gets in. Ajia and Dora in her original form manage to pass due to their beauty. Miaowu passes after demonstrating her power in the strength test. Finally, they're all inside. After registration, Bonnie shows them the arena of the Devil's Forge, an impressive building with 100 floors, where the first 20 floors are for battles. The further you go, the more challenging it becomes. We learn there that no one has been able to pass the 10th floor, and each time they lose, they'll go back to the first floor. While our heroes enjoy the food and accommodation of the place, the more experienced fighters reveal that the game has already begun, recalling the times when the leader of that first floor poisoned many participants with the food or threw leeches in the bathrooms. On the screen, they manage to see that Hannah is doing the best in the battle as she is already on the 11th floor. This makes our heroes happy, and they decide to go to sleep to battle more rested the next day. While in their room, Ajia and Dora begin to notice that the walls are closing in and have large spikes. After several attempts to escape, they realize it's a trap room, and just when it seems they're about to be crushed, Dora manifests a master key that allows them to escape. The leader of the first trial then explains that the only objective to win that level is to escape alive from the hotel. At that moment, explosions and difficult trials begin, in which many of the participants fall easily. When a lava pit opens up on the floor and Sitten falls into it, Dora manifests wings to save him, and in turn saves many other participants who were falling there. Finally, our heroes manage to overcome the obstacles and reach a room where Renaud, the examiner of that floor, is waiting, who comments that only 30 participants managed to pass the first trial. Seeing him there, many participants try to attack him, but he demonstrates his great powers by damaging all his opponents at once. Then, each participant who passed the level receives a chest with a random reward. Dora and Ajia receive 3 crystal fragments and a saffron ring. Miaowu receives half a rough diamond and 30,000 forged dollars. Sitten receives a large quantity of explosives, which lead all participants to the next floor. There, they meet Bonnie, who will be the examiner of that floor. The test here consists of making 20 laps around a giant racetrack. Only the first 15 will be able to move on to the next level. Everything will be broadcast on television. The veterans seem to have everything figured out since they already know the level, and our heroes look worried. In the Tower of the Destroyers, it's revealed that they have released an immensely powerful being. The competition is underway, and Miaowu seems to be leading the pack, with Dora and Ajia trailing behind, and Sitten has managed to find a long-range rocket, which he uses to surpass his opponents. However, after a few minutes of racing, Ajia realizes that something bad will happen as he sees a grim look on the faces of the veterans. He warns his companions because it seems that the strategy of these veterans is not to finish first, but to destroy their fellow competitors to be the only ones to cross the finish line. When one of the veterans fires tracking missiles at Dora and Ajia, our hero manages to redirect them back at the veteran, defeating him in his own game. A venomous veteran poisons all his opponents, but Miaowu, along with her new friend, who is also an animal summoner, manage to stop him and continue the race. Meanwhile, an 8-armed swordsman destroys Sitten's rocket, but just as he is about to finish off the boy, another competitor, Hero, the creator of Hunter x Hunter, defends him and saves his life. Towards the end, there are 15 participants left in the competition who didn't end the lives of their opponents, so they just have to cross the finish line to win. In the Tower of the Destroyers, 2 of them skillfully fight in a fierce training session. The girls are angry because they don't understand why the boss hasn't let them fight in the Forge of the Devil. One of them then comments that after letting Bonnie go, she sneaked into the Forge of the Devil at night but couldn't get in, not even with her great powers. However, before leaving, she managed to steal a television on which they are currently broadcasting the competition from the Forge of the Devil. There we see that the third floor is a cooking competition, which was clearly won by Ajie. The fourth trial seems to be a karaoke contest, to make it simple and relaxing for the tired competitors. Seeing how fun the trials are, the girls get angry and destroy the television. At that moment, the boss Huanqin appears, who seems to be in a good mood. Faced with the tension of his companions, the boss and his companion recommend the girls to enter the competition to hurt Ajie, but also to bring this monster that their boss released. In the competition, 15 participants reach the 5th floor: the dark-hoofed dwarf Gaoding, the merchant Li Chad, the flying ninja squirrel, the mangaka hero, the elders Zhang Jiming and Li Chuanjiao, Frankenstein and his son, Jumping Nina, demonic lipstick, mummy, the poison master, and our heroes. Of the eliminated, half re-registered and will start from floor 1. After that information, the council tells Bonnie to activate the sacrifice program. Then Bonnie is teleported to the 100th floor of the forge, where the goddess Pandora is, the source of all summoners. There, Bonnie hands her a container with all the spiritual power collected during the competition, swearing that if they manage to awaken her, all their efforts will have been worth it. And so, this delicious adventure ends. Perhaps we'll meet our heroes again in Season 2. If you like this story and want to recommend something similar, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and recommend me to your friends. Until next time.